Okay. I'm a PhD student from the Sapienza-University of Rome, and I started my research in December 2020. So today my paper will concern the methodological aspects of the diversity of working with the legacy data. One distinctive feature of the final Bronze Age in Italy is the widespread adoption of the Urnfield model as a funerary custom. During the Bronze Age, the transition from inhumation to cremation permeates many areas of continental Europe, and by the end of the second millennium before Christ, large urnfields have become predominant. In Italy, the transition from inhumation to cremation, with some rare exceptions, unfolds over roughly 5 centuries, from the Middle Age to the early Iron Age. In general, for extremely austere practices that excluded most grave goods, the ritual becomes progressively elaborate. From the final phases of the Bronze Age, around 1000 before Christ, cremation burials include a wide range of offerings and grave goods that emphasize the identity and status of the deceased. In southern Italy, we know of the existence of only 4 cemeteries, and that is probably because of a gap in the research more than other factors. It's important to stress that all the excavations were between the early 1900s and the 60s, and some of them remain unpublished or partially known. And that is probably why the discourse about this phase, so the late Bronze Age, has focused on central and northern Italy more than southern. In the site of Torre Castelluccia, in the town of Pulsano near Taranto, in Apulia, were investigated the tombs of different types and chronologies. The area of the late Bronze Age cremation cemeteries was excavated in 2 campaigns, discovering 85 graves. Carlo Drago conducted the first one in 1951, followed by Felice Gino Porto in 1969. Today, materials are stored in the superintendent's office and in the Archaeological Museum of Taranto, in Taranto. And at the beginning of the 20th century, Domenico Ridola and Quagliati discovered an Urnfield on the slopes of Mount Timmari near Matera. At that time, is the biggest one known in southern Italy. And the excavation, which took place in the summer of 1901, brought to light 248 burials, actually stored in the Archaeological Museum Domenico Ridola in Matera, and in the superintendent's office in Taranto. My PhD aims to complete the research started with my master's degree dissertation, enriching the database with new information on the cremation practices in southern Italy during the late Bronze Age. So what do we know about these 2 cemeteries? As I mentioned before, the excavation in Timmari took place in 1901, and the discovery was announced immediately after by Domenico Ridola and Quagliati. They published most of the findings in 1906 on Monumenti Antichi, and at that time it was an incredible detailed publication. Later in the 70s, thanks to an important conference in Italy about the final Bronze Age, there was a renovated interest for the necropolis of Timmari. And in those years, Mirella Cipolloni Sampo, with the anthropologist Silvana Borgoni di Tarli, started to work on the anthropological remains that would be published in the 90s. Publications on Torre Castelluccia were fewer and basically consist in the analysis of metal grave goods conducted by Müller-Karpe, dating back to the 60s, before the main excavation was completed. At the beginning of the 2000s, a publication edited by Maria Gorgoglione showed data regarding both settlement and cemetery, with particular attention to human cremated remains. Now I would like to tell you more about legacy data and the related work. Collecting data such as inventories, negatives, diary plans, and obviously publication is the first things to do. In my case, materials and documents were stored and displayed in different locations, so the preliminary work was to look for their exact location. Once I collected the necessary data, I arranged them in a database created with the software Microsoft Access. The digital archive collects not only those artifacts-related data, but also all those information regarding the archaeological context. Information about the excavation and single tombs have also been included. I basically created a digital alternative to the physical archive. This is the structure of the database. Working on this, it was possible to get the exact location of the necropolis, integrating land register information into the satellite images. For the first time, we can see a unified planimetry of burial ground and appreciate the arrangement of the graves, both of the ones excavated in 1951 and the ones excavated in 1969. A crucial aspect of the work has been to recover information thought to be lost. As the example shows, it was not possible to define the provenance of this urn. Since the original label went lost and both the copy made for the archive and the one made for the museum didn't report the tomb number. After the restoration, we were able to spot the ossuary in one of the negatives of the excavation photos and relabel the tomb. Using photos for accurate identification of the graves was essential. The majority of material stored in the boxes was extremely fragmentary. I've created 4 levels of attribution and identification: certain, plausible, uncertain, and unverifiable. Unfortunately, I could not verify the attribution for more than 40% of the graves due to the damages that occurred after the excavation. However, the attribution of 32 tombs out of 85 brings encouraging results. Almost the 50% of the total amount was recognizable. Moreover, the cataloging process led to a considerable increase in the number of graves reported, from 85 to 107. It's important to stress that I didn't consider all those vases whose only one fragment was discovered. A comparative study of materials coming from Torre Castelluccia with the materials coming from other published sites of southern Italy, Timmari included, led to a hypothetical chronology and division in phases of the late Bronze Age. As you can see from the serration table, the distinction between recent Bronze Age and final Bronze Age is very clear, while it was more challenging to define subphases within the final Bronze Age. That is a long-standing problem that we hope to solve with further study on each context. When I say it's difficult, I mean that there are a lot of types sharing between the two phases. So it was difficult to put a limit for each subphase. As far as observed, Torre Castelluccia and Timmari seems to have been developed during the same period, starting in recent Bronze Age and lasting until the end of the final Bronze Age. There are remarkable affinities between the two cemeteries, each of them carrying their own local identity. While vessels have almost the same shapes, decorative motifs have their peculiarities, even if they have some similarities. Only a complete study of Timmari could confirm or refute this hypothesis, and that is one of the purposes of my PhD project, also including ritual and social aspects. In conclusion, I would like to briefly go through the pros and cons of what I say. Starting from the cons, we have to keep in mind that there is the fact that data loss not only occurs during excavation, but also during the conservation process, when serious damages are even more frequent. When it comes to studying materials excavating long ago, it's frequent to run into invasive restoration that could affect our analysis, residue analysis, for example. Moreover, accessible data are not always reliable, and materials are often stored in different locations. and data descriptions cause inevitable loss of details. Since these datasets are often old and forgotten, this kind of study wants to prevent the risk of further losses. I believe that acquiring new data and combining them with the previous results for a fresh perspective could revive the debate and extend our knowledge. New technologies have become a valuable asset to research, creating new methods of analysis. Just think about the new symmetric methods for sexing ancient cremated human remains, or the determination of demography and human mobility through strontium isotope analysis. Nowadays, the pandemic has forced an inevitable pause, reducing the chances for discovery in the field. And in this context, legacy data-related works are more than encouraged. Probably we gain the best results if we convert legacy data into creating open data, leading to the sharing of information that should be reusable and accessible to everyone. And thank you for your attention.